Hey guys, what's up? I hope you guys are doing very well. Welcome back and welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to share with you my top 5 favorite high-end foundations, and I will also be doing a video on Drugstore as well. So I will leave that video in the description box if it's already up. So without much further ado, let's quickly get started with today's video. Okay guys, before we start, a full disclaimer that this list is not an exhaustive list. Foundation favorites will depend a lot on your skin type, skin tone, your own preference. So this is my preference based on my skin type and my liking. You can agree or disagree with these recommendations. Obviously we all have different preferences, different skin types, etc, etc. So I'm not saying these are the 5 best high-end foundations. I'm saying these are the 5 best ones which I love personally. And also I haven't really tried a whole lot of high-end foundations. I can count the foundations I have tried on my fingers. Probably I have tried around 11 to 12 of them, and currently I don't really have all of them in my collection. So this is the list which I have made from what I have currently and loving currently. Also, for your information, my skin type is normal to dry. Most of the time it's dry. It's not extremely dry. I am around NC 43, 44. Sometimes I tend to get a little lighter or darker depending on how I have exposed myself to the sun. But mostly I'm in the range of MAC NC 43, 44, and I do prefer more natural looking foundations, more sheer coverage, like medium coverage foundations, and I don't really wear a lot of full coverage, but I still do have a few full coverage foundations in the list today. Okay, so let's start off with the foundations, and since I have to start somewhere, let's start with this one. This is Smashbox Studios Skin Foundation. It's a 15-hour long wear foundation, and this is obviously one of my favorites. I really like this foundation. Now this is a oil-free foundation and it's a medium to full coverage foundation. I would say it's more of a medium coverage foundation on me, the way I apply it. I really like the finish of this foundation. It sets very well on my skin and it just doesn't move, doesn't budge, and it looks very nice throughout the wear. And I do agree with the 15-hour claim of this foundation. It does hold up really nicely on my skin and it doesn't move, doesn't budge, nothing happens to it. It looks great throughout, and I really like the shade which I have got for myself. It oxidizes just a bit, so it just settles down and blends with my skin very nicely. And it's also a hydrating foundation, so that's what attracted me the most to this foundation. Although I'm not too sure of the hydrating nature of the foundation, because always I use primer and moisturizer, so my skin doesn't feel dry or anything, so probably it works. But yes, when you first apply the foundation, it's a little bit on the heavy side, but after a while, once it's set and everything, your skin does feel more lighter that you're not wearing foundation. So I like the finish. It's a more of a matte, demi-matte sort of a finish. It doesn't give you any glow or anything like that. It's very skin-like. I like the finish. If you touch your face and anything, it's not going to move. It just sets completely. So love the finish. I love how long wearing it is. So this is definitely in my top 5. I do have a review of this foundation along with the concealer and some of the primer stuff from Smashbox. So I will leave that in the description box. There you can find more details and demo of the foundation. So I think that video will be helpful. Next we have this foundation. I did not know that this will make the list so quickly because I have got it pretty recently. This is the Beauty Blender Bounce Foundation, and that is what I have on my face right now, and this is what I have been wearing for the past few weeks very regularly along with some other foundations. But I love the finish of this foundation. It is so beautiful. I have a full review of this foundation along with the comparison with the Too Faced foundation, so I leave the video in the description box. I will not talk too much about it because the video is pretty recent, but the finish of this foundation is so beautiful. It's like a skin-like finish with a little bit of like dew, but not too dewy, not too matte. It's just beautiful. Your skin just looks like, as you can see right now, the skin just looks plain, poreless. It's a very high coverage foundation, although I don't really use a lot, but still it gives me a lot of coverage. I don't prefer foundations like this most of the time, but I think the finish of this foundation is what is like making me like it, because it doesn't look cakey. It just looks beautiful. The skin looks beautiful. Normally what happens when you apply too full a coverage foundation, your skin looks, you know, artificial, unnatural, cakey, but that doesn't happen with this foundation. So I love the finish of this foundation. I will highly recommend if you can find a shade match. I've talked about the shade scenario in my other video if you want to check that one out. I'm using the shade 4.10. It's a tad bit light for dark for me, but I'm happily wearing it. I don't mind if it's a little bit dark, especially since this foundation oxidizes, so you do have to take care of that factor when you choose your foundation shade. On me, I think it looks fine. I have applied the foundation everywhere, like here as well, near the chest, the exposed area, so it looks blended in, and I've highlighted the eye, underneath the eye area, so it looks fine. I'm really happy with this foundation. I am just wearing it like crazy. Just the finish is so beautiful. I'm also 4.10, which is like cool olive undertone, so I was pretty surprised that a cool olive undertone foundation suited me really well. Do check out the video if you want to see more on this Beauty Blender foundation. I will leave that in the description box. But truly, I'm really loving. I think most skin types will be able to use the Beauty Blender foundation. Just try out in Sephora first. I think most of you will be able to use. As far as the Smashbox is concerned, I think most should be able to use. I don't see why not. Most people will use because it dries down to a more matte finish. If you have dry skin, just make sure you're using a lot of moisturizer, primer underneath. And for combo skin, I think it should work fine. And for oily skin also, I don't see why it shouldn't work because it does dry down. Okay, let's move on. The third favorite foundation is definitely my Too Faced Born This Way foundation. Now this is also a very high coverage foundation. The other two also which I mentioned till now were also high coverage, so we are sticking in that area. Love this foundation. I have loved this foundation for a really long time. It has been 3 years or so now. I got this shade Caramel also recently. I think it has been a year or so that I have got the shade Caramel, which I think suits my skin tone a little bit better. I also have the shade Honey, which I have used for a long time, but I think I have tanned quite a bit in the past few years, so I think Caramel suits me a little bit better. Sometimes I do mix and match and use them. But the finish of this foundation is also really beautiful, and that's why I like the foundation, because it gives a very nice dewy finish and it just looks beautiful throughout the day. It looks smooth, even complexion, and it just wears really nicely. And this foundation is infused with coconut water, hyaluronic acid, a lot of good things. So definitely check out that video which I have done on these two foundations, the Beauty Blender Bounce foundation and the Too Faced foundation. Both are in the same video, so I will leave that in the description box. Moving on, one of my favorite, all-time favorite everyday foundations is this one from Benefit. It's a very cute little foundation. It's called the Hello Happy foundation, and I use the shade 8, and it's almost a near perfect shade match for me. It does oxidize as well, so after oxidization it looks perfect. When I applied the first time, it is a little bit light, but after it settles down and oxidizes, the shade is just perfect. I love the coverage of this foundation. It's a very sheer coverage foundation, but it's not like it's too sheer. It does even out the skin tone, and it looks very natural. This is like a perfect office wear or college wear foundation where you don't want a full coverage, but you still want to even out your skin tone and look put together. This is a foundation for you. It sets down as well to a semi-matte finish, and it doesn't budge, it doesn't move. This one also looks great on my skin, and it has SPF of 15 as well, so you do get a little bit of SPF. Overall, I think it's a really nice foundation. At least on my skin type, it doesn't break apart. It wears very nicely. And I think this one also many skin types should be able to use. I think I'm confident that dry skin and combo skin should be able to use it. Not too sure about the oily skin type because it's a pretty sheer coverage, so I don't know how it will hold up on too much of a oily skin, so not sure of that. But I have dry skin, it works great for me, so definitely I will recommend the Hello Happy, one of my favorite everyday foundations. And last but not the least is this one. Definitely top, my favorite foundation is this one from Hourglass. This is the Hourglass Vanish Stick Foundation, and I did not think I will ever like a stick foundation so much. This is such a beautiful foundation. This is how the foundation stick looks like. The packaging is just so beautiful. I've had it for quite a while now, but I still haven't finished it. I still have quite a lot to finish. This is like my travel companion. Whenever I'm away from my home, I always have this with me. It's the most trusted foundation I have. It works really beautifully on my dry skin. It's very creamy and it just blends super easily. I have the shade Amber with me and it just looks beautiful on the skin. I do not use a beauty blender with this. I use a stiffer brush. Not really stiffer, I would say a more denser brush like this. It's a Zoeva Silk Finish, and just blend the foundation. It takes no time, especially when you're in a hurry. This foundation just blends itself and it doesn't emphasize any sort of dry patches or anything. I really moisturize my skin very nicely. I do prime my skin and then apply this foundation. It just wears and looks beautiful throughout, especially for my travel vlogs. There are many times when people ask me which foundation are you wearing in that vlog wherever I'm traveling, and most of the time I'll answer that it's the Hourglass Vanish stick, because that's mostly I wear when I'm traveling, because it takes very little time to just apply, very easy to apply, and it holds up very well on my skin. So this is definitely one of my favorite foundations. I don't know what I'll do without this. Once this finishes, I will definitely repurchase, and if there is an occasion that I am supposed to give up all of my foundations and have only one foundation, I'm definitely going to have only this foundation, because I think this is a really versatile foundation. It can give you a lot of coverage if you want, but as I like sheer coverage foundations, I don't apply a lot, but it still looks beautiful. It still smoothens out the skin tone. It makes everything look even and put together. So love it. This is my favorite Hourglass Vanish stick. So that's it, guys. Those are my top 5 favorite high-end foundations which I have used so far. Do let me know if you have used any of these foundations and how has your experience been. We would love to know, especially with foundations. I think different people will have different experiences, so something which is working for me may not work for you. So do let us know in the comment section below. Other than that, I really hope you liked this video. If you like this video, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you're watching me for the first time, I really hope you'll consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again really soon in my next video. Bye.